Witch in Charm's Way, a cozy mystery audiobook, written and narrated by R.K. Dreaming. Part 5. Some hours later, I was pacing around and around my tower room. The crime scene team had come and done their work and gone with the body, and so had Chris Constantine. I had kept watch from out of my window. Allegra had messaged again as I'd been watching him. I'd wished I could snap a shot of the view and send it to her. #eyecandy. Allegra was single. She would have appreciated it. Did she know Hollywood's finest was working as law enforcement in Brimstone now? Was he doing research for a new role? But that couldn't be right. Chief Rain would never have sent him here alone to lead on a murder case if he was an amateur. The chief had very high standards. "I know you're all loved up and all," Allegra's message had said, "but when are we meeting? I want to hear all about it, and don't even think about putting me off. You can't skip 2 weeks in a row." She wanted me to confirm our next weekly London meet-up, but I wasn't in London. She wanted to hear happy newlywed stories. I had none. "Please let's skip it again just this once," I had replied. "I'll let you know when." She had not replied. Her silence felt ominous. Allegra was no fool. She knew something was up. I hoped she would put it down to the weirdness of me being a newlywed. In other circumstances, I'd have said I was lucky to have that excuse. Aunt Adele had brought me the breakfast that she had promised me. She had told me in hushed tones that she had been eavesdropping in the garden and overheard Agent Constantine and a crime scene woman talking. They thought it was possible that Lily had not been killed in our garden because there would have been more blood here if she had. She may have been murdered elsewhere. I pondered this as I ate. It made sense that she must have died somewhere else, poor Lily, because otherwise we would surely have heard sounds of a struggle. But where? And would that location have revealed something about the killer? I finished every bite of the huge portions of toast and eggs and mushrooms and sausages, but I still felt ravenous. It was daytime and my body was trying to shut down, desperate to sleep. But I refused to do it. I was going to stay awake and be normal. I had to be normal. Chris Constantine had as good as told me I was a suspect. If he'd found out about my affliction, he would have marched me into the police station in handcuffs already. I was sure of it. I chewed my lip. Lily had been left here on purpose, and in the private garden, not the cafe garden that was more easily accessible. The private garden was walled off to keep strangers out. Someone had deliberately chosen it. Was someone trying to frame me? Why? Had it been James the werewolf? Had he been trying to throw suspicion off himself? He would have heard Lily yelling at me. She had been mad at me. It was a perfect reason to frame me. They'd picked the perfect patsy whether they knew it or not. Was my secret not as secret as I had thought? This thought was too scary. I pushed it out of my mind. I had downplayed my argument with Lily to Chris. He'd find that out soon enough when he spoke to Oberon and the others. They would tell him how angry Lily had been with me. It had only been in the heat of the moment, but the others might say something different. And then Chris Constantine would be back here, and this time he would have a real reason to be suspicious. This time he might look closer. Darn it! My plan for the day had been, as soon as it got dark, which would happen around 4 o'clock, I would rush to Brimstone Library to find the books that I needed. Brimstone Library had a vast collection of specialist books for witches and the eldritch. What I was looking for had to be in there. But now I had a new problem. Imagine if Chris Constantine came back and decided to take me into the police office for questioning during the daytime with all that bright sunlight. My skin would blister up in a heartbeat. He would take one look at that and know it wasn't a medical condition. He would know what had happened to me. There were no vampire witches in England for a reason. The same reason I hated even thinking those words. I wasn't one of those. I could not be. Something had happened to me. I didn't remember what exactly. There had been an attack. So fast and sudden. Then nothing. Afterwards I had woken up with 2 little holes in my neck and an iron taste in my mouth. Except now I wasn't even sure if those little holes had ever been there. They were gone. But I did remember one thing. My magic had flared. For most of my life, I'd hardly had any. But in the moment of the attack, I had felt it roar to life within me so fiercely as if it was desperate to save me. And it had. I had no fangs. I still had a reflection. The transformation had not been completed. There was still a chance for me to save myself. And the magic. I should have been excited about the magic, but I was scared. Look at what had happened in the cafe yesterday. The unexpected blast from my wand could have hurt James the werewolf badly. Are you going to stay here agonizing all day, or are you going to do something about it? Said a voice. With a screech of shock, I whirled around towards my bed where the voice had come from. But nothing was there. The bed was empty. I stood frozen where I was. I couldn't see where it was. The voice had been a man's, not Aunt Adele's. I was shocked one of the 7 ghosts had come into my tower. It felt such an intrusion. Who's there? I said in a shaky voice. Me, said the voice. Seeing movement, I looked down. Captain Villain had come out from under my bed. He was looking at me inquisitively. Perhaps because the invisible ghost was making me look like I was talking to myself like a madwoman. I looked around the room some more, trying to spot a glimpse of pearly white translucent ghostliness anywhere. I especially inspected the walls and floor and ceiling, in case the ghost had stuck its head through and was having some fun at my expense. I saw nothing. I shivered. Maybe I'd imagined it. I crouched to tickle Captain Villain between his ears. What are you doing here? I said to him. The least you could have done is come out when Chris Constantine was interviewing me. He didn't believe that you're real. That's hardly my problem, said the voice. I screamed and fell over onto my butt. Captain Villain was speaking. It was him. His mouth had not moved. He had spoken directly into my mind. Captain Villain, I said tentatively, getting to my feet but staying away from him. Yes, of course it's me, he said irritably. I gaped. But, I had asked him a question just now, but that was only because that's how you spoke to cats. He wasn't supposed to reply. You're a cat. Cats don't speak. Or not any that I'd heard of. All kinds of animals could be a witch's familiar, and some of them even had different kinds of powers. But I had never heard of a speaking cat before. Not in real life, anyway. I'm not speaking, he said irritably. You're hearing it in your head. Is that your special power? I asked. You can speak into people's heads. Never you mind what my power is, he said. Now, are you going to sit here and mope all day? Or are you going to find James the werewolf and ask him the questions you need to ask? But, well... Actually, that was a very good idea. Don't flap about, girl. Spit it out. But I can't go out just now, I said to him. I'm not feeling well. I couldn't explain why I wasn't feeling like myself. I didn't want anyone to know, not even the cat. I know that, he said. I've noticed. You've noticed? I squeaked. I notice lots of things. Clearly you do not. What is that supposed to mean? Where is James Buckleman? he said. Is that the werewolf? How do you know his surname? How do I know anything? This is a delusion, I said. I'm having a hallucination. I went over to my bed and sat down on it. I had been sick all week. What did I expect? You most certainly are not, he said. Bored now. If you're going to be annoying, then I am going to leave. No, don't leave, I said quickly. Do you really know where he is? So do you. My eyes widened. That was right. I did know where he was. Yesterday, Lily had told James that he could sleep on the beach with the cats for all she cared. She had meant Kitten Cove. He might still be there. But for how long? I couldn't leave the house until 4 o'clock. He might be long gone by then. I got out my phone. I had to call Agent Constantine and let him know. Don't do that, said Captain Villain irritably. Let Mr. Fancy Pants do his job and you do yours. Or do you want those kids telling him to look to you as a suspect? Do you think you're going to stand up to scrutiny? They kill your kind. They always have. I flushed with anger. What do you mean, my kind? I am not any kind. Not yet, he said enigmatically. Not ever, I insisted. Not if I can help it. It doesn't matter, he said. Do you think they're going to stop and wait to see what happens? Nosferatu, remember? Of course I remembered. The prophecy of Nosferatu foretold the rise of a terrible, dark vampire witch or wizard, which was not surprising since every witch or wizard who had ever been turned into a vampire had gone horribly bad. They had been hunted down and killed, every last one, every known one anyway. The fact that he had mentioned Nosferatu meant he knew exactly what was wrong with me. That's not going to happen to me, I whispered. Not if you stay ahead of the game. And you had better hope Agent Constantine doesn't find out about the last time you were accused of murder either. That? How do you know about... Oh, never mind. That was a ridiculous affair that had nothing to do with me. And yet they'll point to it and say there's no smoke without fire. We had better be off. Are you coming? With his tail held high in the air, Captain Villain walked up to my door and looked at me like he wanted me to let him out. I can't go anywhere, remember, not until after dark. That's what you think, he said. Come with me and you can go exactly where you need to be. This was mad. Bonkers. Cloud cuckoo land, as Granny Selma would say. But I let him out and followed him down the spiral stairs of South Tower. This was going to be interesting, if nothing else. Hi, you've reached the end. Comment pink unicorn as a code word to confuse everyone who hasn't reached this part of the story yet. Thanks for commenting.